Back here, Radio Row, Super Bowl 50 between the Carolina Panthers and the Denver Broncos. And now joining us on the set in San Francisco is Jen Welter, who was a training camp assistant coach in the preseason for the Arizona Cardinals. Jen, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
Well, thank you for coming on. So the first thing that everyone wondering when this position for you was announced was how would the men respond to it? How did the Cardinals player respond? Because I know they are a first-class organization.
And they were better than you can imagine. And that is a credit to the man and the coach that is Bruce Arians. He really set that tone. He said, this is important to me. I'm making this happen. You will, he set that tone of respect. And so I tell anybody to win in the boys club, which is what I call it, you need a great man to bet on you. And Bruce Arians bet on me. And then beyond that, it was these guys, they were so excited, right? They watched my game film. They were like, it wasn't like I went in there and I had to demand their respect, which is what everybody thought. No, they gave me respect the minute I walked in the door because they said, Coach, I watched your highlight reel. And as an athlete, we all know that's the ultimate sign of respect. So from there, it just became very natural. And as Bruce Arians said, the novelty of her being a female coach wore off after about 3 days, and then it was just coach.
Why do you think Bruce gave you a chance?
It was personally important to Bruce Arians. He told me when we first talked that he had a coach in college, his receivers coach. I believe her name was Dot Murphy, and she was one of the best coaches he'd ever been around. And because of that, he said the fact that it hasn't changed and we haven't gotten any further, that's not acceptable. And he said, I really want you to know it's in my heart to make this happen.
What stood out to you the most about Bruce? Because I got a chance to know him over the years. He's a very special guy, clearly is motivated because this is his last job. But what just stood out to you about Bruce Arians, the person? Because as good of a coach he is, he's a better human being.
He is. He's just 100% that guy. That guy that everybody sees, like the little clips. That's him 24/7. He doesn't know how to be any other way than just legit and real, and his players love him. He is honest. He is that guy. I remember saying after I met him, I'm like, I want to play for that guy. I would run through a wall for Bruce Arians because you just believe that everything he tells you is 100% legit, and anything he says is going to be to make you the best player in person that you can be.
I love the football life on NFL Network, and I would say there is no better football life than Bruce Arians. Your take on what you saw this past year? I know you got to live through it, but that football life was something special.
It is something special, and he is something special, and I'm so glad that a football life captured his life because it is one that could inspire so many people. One of the favorite things I had heard about Bruce Arians before I went there was how he dealt with the situation with Chuck Pagano. And I remember he said it's no different. I just get to make the decision on whether we go for it on 4th and 1 now. And he pretty much dropped the mic and walked out of the room. And I just thought, what a man. You're not stepping into it with ego. You're respecting your brother who gave you this opportunity when everybody thought you were done after Pittsburgh. And to just go in and do that, you're a class act. And that comes in through all elements of his football life.
And I got a chance to interview Bruce a few times, but especially I got a chance to interview him when Chuck was actually finally coming back. And I remember that story that Bruce always tells where they kept the light on for Chuck Pagano in the facility.
They kept the light on for Chuck at the facility. He also wouldn't sit in the front seat on the bus. He left it empty because he said that's the head coach's seat. That's Chuck's seat. How can you not just absolutely love and respect a man with that kind of character?
We're spending a few minutes on Radio Row with Jen Welter, and let me just get to this. Catherine Smith got hired by the Buffalo Bills. Rex Ryan took a chance on her. What advice would you give to her?
Be 100% authentic. Don't coach like you think you're supposed to coach. Don't try and be somebody else. Terry Glenn gave me that advice. I coached with him at the Texas Revolution, and he said, Jen, if you are exactly the person that you are every day, like you were here, those guys will love you. But if you try to be anything else, if you're false in any way, those guys will eat you alive. And I took that, and when I doubted myself or I wondered if I was doing the right things, I would go back to be authentic. And that's what I would tell her.
Getting past the female-male barrier, what was your biggest challenge besides that in coaching with the Cardinals?
Could I give them anything to make them better? And I had played football for 14 years, but these are the best of the best. So we all have that moment where we doubt ourselves, where that little voice just challenges us, like, am I really supposed to be here? And, thankfully they made me so welcome. I got over that pretty fast.
And what you could do, I'm sure it will inspire some people, because not every girl growing up is going to have a passion for football, but I'm sure there's a lot that do. Did anyone reach out to you ever since you've been in the preseason with the Cardinals and say, hey, Jen, you really made a difference in my life?
It happens every single day. And it's what makes me get up early in the morning and just think this is the right thing. Because being in the NFL was a dream I was never permitted to have. There was no coach that I could look at on the sidelines and say, I want to be her when I grow up. And knowing that now what we did in Arizona has given little girls the permission to dream that dream is the best compliment in the world.
So let's say if there was, I don't know, a 10-year-old girl listening right now to WHIP as we're here at the Super Bowl, broadcasting in Philadelphia, and that girl is a massive Eagles fan, and all she wants to do is be in the National Football League, and she's listening right now. How does she get from point A to B to do something that you did and get to live through your dreams?
I would tell her, be a student of the game. Learn strategies, watch tape, get around every NFL or football big brother you can, because this is what I did. I would grab them, even though I was playing. I'd be like, hey, tell me something that'll make me better. Watch tape with me, coach me up, teach me technique. Just be fearless and be relentless and go after it 100%, because you never know. That love of football may not end up with you playing football. Right, just like any guy, right? Not every guy who loves football grows up playing football. So maybe you play football, maybe you coach football, maybe you become a scout, maybe you become a front office person. I mean, just yesterday, Roger Goodell, he announced the Rooney Rule for the NFL, meaning that now they're going to open up executive jobs for everybody, like for women, like that they're going to make these jobs available, that you can get more women in the NFL. There is a future in football for anybody who really wants it, and that's what we've seen. So go after it.
How many times did someone give you a disrespectful comment and say, Jen, what are you doing? Like, this is a man's game. You have no place in it. Did people ever say that to you?
Yeah, I mean, mostly like people I didn't know. They would be kind of those
ignorant people.
Yeah, well, like the anonymous internet trolls. Like I remember.
No, they're the worst.
I mean, a lot of the times what you would hear is, what does she know about football? She never played the game. Oh, well, actually, I played for 14 years. So maybe we don't want to make those comments unless we check somebody's resume. And, the other one I would hear is like, oh, those guys won't listen to X, Y, and Z, or, you don't have anything to teach them. And I would just say, well, go ask the guys then. Go ask my players. I think that they might tell you something different.
What was the nicest compliment that you got from an individual player? Who was that player, and what did they say to you?
Gosh, I got so many. Like, these guys were so fantastic. But I think, one of them was like one of my first ones, and I was helping somebody on defense with technique. I forget what it was. It was coming off the edge, like edge rush technique or something, and it was a rookie. And I was coaching him up on something, and Lorenzo Alexander walked by. And, he's a super vet. Like, he's a legend in this game.
Sure.
And the guy kind of, like, I'm coaching him, and he looks past me, and he was like, Zoe, how am I doing? What should I do? And Zoe just looked at him, and he's like, you need to listen to Coach right there, because everything she said was on point. And he kept walking. And the truth is that it was veteran moments like that that changed the game. Because if he could have very easily been like, yeah, come here, young rook. And then the young rook would have listened to Zoe and not listened to me. And what he did by doing that is given me an endorsement, and that was one of the greatest compliments I could get.
So let's get your football expertise. Cam Newton, that's going to be a big task for the Denver Broncos to be going out there and defending him. The Broncos are it's going to be a difficult matchup to do that, and they're going to have to stay in their lanes. You saw that a little bit in last Super Bowl. So what do they have to do to try to contain Cam? I don't think you could stop him, but maybe you can contain him.
All right. This is what I said Arizona needed to do, but we didn't do successfully. You have got to make Cam Newton uncomfortable, okay? You have to keep the outside edge. You cannot let him get outside of you and be able to run, because that's one way that Cam will beat you. And if you contain that pocket, if you make him stay in the pocket, then you've got to get pressure. I mean, they did a great job shutting down the pressure that Arizona was trying to send at him, but we have got to do that. And I think you have to stop Olsen. When I was an outside linebacker, we were told you never, ever give a tight end free release. I would jam him. I wouldn't let him get into your secondary because he's too big, he's too good. If you take away his tight end and you keep Cam Newton in the pocket, then he's going to really have to go after you. And that's what I would tell Denver.
Now on the other side with the Broncos, Peyton Manning this could be it for him. And now Peyton's at a different stage in his career. We were talking to Ted Johnson earlier in the week, and he always said when we were playing him, we would never blitz Peyton. But now teams do blitz Peyton. So what does the offensive line have to do to pick up the blitz from Carolina? Because really with Carolina, they get out in front early in these playoffs, and that's when it's over. It's a knockout punch.
I mean, they're so aggressive. That's what Carolina did to Arizona. You know, I remember talking to some of the guys, and they were like, Coach, it was like it slipped, and once it slipped, we couldn't get it back. Like the momentum was just gone because Carolina came out so forceful. So, you know, what the Broncos have to do is you have to protect Peyton. If you protect Peyton, he can pick apart any defense. But if you let them get to him like we experienced with Arizona, like Carson did, it's going to be a rough game. But, I mean, that's two of the best defenses in the league, so I'm excited to see how they match up against each other.
So I'm going to put you on the spot. Who are you picking in this game?
You know, usually they say to ask where you're from before that, but I already know the answer to that question. So, you know, I just have to say Carolina really looks like the complete package team right now. I think they're hard to stop.
How many more years do you think Bruce Arians will coach for?
I don't know. You know, Bruce Arians might coach till the wheels fall off because he said to me once, he was like, I'm finally having a lot of fun, Jen. I'm not coaching for my next job. And I think that makes it very special because everybody who coaches knows that you're only as good as your last season, your last win. But I think he's having fun.
Did he ever talk about his Temple days? Because I go to Temple University now, and we know that was something special to Bruce's heart.
You know, Bruce he didn't open up to me on a lot of those things. I think that's because we were in such an intense time period with preseason and training camp. There's not a whole lot of personal time.
Sure.
But I would love to hear about his Temple days. Maybe you can tell me about it.
Well, I wasn't around then. I wasn't even a thought then. But I will say this. He brought in a guy by the name of Paul Palmer, who ended up finishing second in the Heisman, runner-up to Vinny Testaverde, and he had over 1,800 yards in that year. And this is Temple University. It's not Alabama. It's not Miami. And he took a chance on Paul Palmer, and it shows how good of a talent evaluator Bruce Arians is because no one else gave Paul Palmer a chance, and that was his first and only scholarship offer. So that's my Bruce Arians story with Temple.
Bruce Arians has an eye for talent. He sees guys that other people overlook. Look at John Brown.
Yeah.
John Brown,
sure.
I mean, he is a fantastic receiver. Yeah, he's a little bit undersized, but with that speed, you have
We wish
JJ
the Eagles
as well.
had him instead of some of the messes they've picked over the years.
Yeah, I mean, he is so good about talent, and he really believes. And this, you know, this is like we talked about with the coaching staff, like we talked about with the playing staff. Talent is talent, and Bruce will take talent, and that's what makes him so great.
Now, before we let you go, you're doing some great work with the Wounded Warrior Project and the San Francisco NFL alumni. Tell us a little bit more about this event tomorrow.
Yes, I'm such an advocate for the Wounded Warriors amputee football team. It is my favorite team to play for now. I had to retire from women's football, but I still play with these guys because I grew up with Army heroes. And to see, you know, these Army heroes come with NFL heroes on the same field and really celebrate each other in this game that I love so much, that's priceless. And that's what we're doing tomorrow.
How much injuries are there in the women's game? Because now in the NFL, a lot of people think of CTE and concussions. When you're playing in a league with mainly women, how many injuries are there usually?
Football is football.
Yeah. That's why I stopped playing it.
Yeah. Football is football. It's the same game, same injuries, same risks.
Okay. Jen, thanks so much. We appreciate a few minutes. You were absolutely fantastic on the show today.
Anytime. Thank you so much for having me.
There's Jen Welter live on Radio Row. We'll take a quick break, and we'll be back with more action as Radio Row's picking up on a Friday. We're close to the Super Bowl.